May 18th, 1980, 8:32 in the morning, Washington State. A convoy is scheduled for 10 o'clock. Cabin owners' vehicles, escorted by the State Patrol, are to drive past the roadblock for the second time that weekend. There is an hour and a half left before they set out. People usually tell the story of Mount St. Helens as the mountain that exploded sideways. That is true, and we will get to it. But for the 2 months before May 18th, something else was going on here. People were arguing about where to draw a line on a map. Some wanted to get inside it. Others did not want to let them in. And the decision belonged to someone who was neither. We are going to look at how that line was moved, what happened in 40 seconds on the morning of the 18th, and who ended up on the wrong side of it. And one number we will come back to at the end. 57 people died that morning. 56 of them had every right to be where they were. 5 feet a day. To understand the argument, you have to understand what was being argued over. Spirit Lake was a place people went to relax. Cabins, lodges, boat landings, scout camps, a road along the shore. People had been coming here for decades, and for some of the owners, this was not a holiday home, but a living. Boat rentals, cabin lettings, a lodge. Logging operations worked alongside it. The mountains stood in commercial timber, not in a remote wilderness preserve. On March 20th, the ground shook beneath the mountain. It had been silent for 123 years. And under a sleeping volcano, earthquakes do not happen for no reason. A week later, steam came out of the summit, and a crater opened up there. Then, in April, something started happening that nobody was expecting. Magma rose, but it never reached the summit. It stalled inside the north face and began pushing that face apart from the inside. The slope started climbing outward. It grew by about 5 feet a day. Every day it moved out by the height of a grown adult, and it did not pause. By May 12th, parts of it stood more than 450 feet higher than they had before. That is a 45-story building grown onto the side of a mountain in 2 months. Geologists set rangefinders on the neighboring ridges and measured the distance every morning. Every morning, it was shorter than the day before. At the end of April, the state closed off access, and there were 2 zones. The red zone, closest to the mountain, was open only to scientists and law enforcement. The blue zone surrounded it, and loggers and property owners could enter with daytime permits. And this is where the actual story begins. Because inside the red zone, there was other people's property, and right beside it, other people's work. The argument over the line. Look at what ended up inside the line. Inside were the cabins at Spirit Lake, the scout camps with their boats, and the geologists' observation posts. The logging sites were partly inside and partly out. The ban was enforced loosely, to put it kindly. On the 3rd of April, aviation authorities counted 109 aircraft in the closed airspace over the mountain, flying people in to look. The cabin owners were cut off from their property indefinitely. The tourist season was coming, and for some of them, this was not recreation, but income. Lodges, rentals, cabins to let. They started pushing, and gradually, they pushed louder. The timber company that owned the forest around the mountain was pushing too. The logic was simple. No work could be done inside the red zone, and the timber standing in there was earning nothing. The company wanted that zone as small as possible. On the other side stood the geologists, and they wanted the exact opposite. Not to shrink the zone, but to widen it with mandatory evacuation. Their argument was a single one, and to everyone else it sounded weak. The bulge is growing. Nobody knows how it ends, so there should be no people inside. They could not name a date, a magnitude, or even the way the mountain would go. They said they did not know. All spring, they were pressured to reopen the area. They did not give in. And sitting in the middle of this argument was a man who was getting in everybody's way. Harry Truman, 83 years old, owner of a lodge and a boat landing on the south shore of Spirit Lake. He had lived there more than half a century, and when the evacuation was announced, he refused to go. He always put it the same way. The mountain was not going to run him off. Nobody removed him by force, and for the other owners, that became the central argument. One old man is allowed to stay right at the foot of the mountain, and they are not allowed in for a single day to collect their own belongings. The press came out to see him, and he became a celebrity fast. On May 15th, a major outlet chartered him a plane so he could speak at a school in the next state and tell the children why he lived next to an active volcano. So a man from the most dangerous spot on the map was being flown around to give talks at schools, while the owner of the cabin next door could not get in to collect a refrigerator. A couple of days before the weekend, something happened that finished it. 11 boats were lifted out of the scout camps by helicopter. The government was pulling property out of a zone it would not let the owners into. A protest was called for noon on Saturday. Some of the owners said openly that they would simply walk up to the roadblocks in numbers and push through. It never came to that. The governor gave in ahead of time and ordered the owners let in under state patrol escort. On Saturday, May 17th, a convoy of about 50 vehicles went through the roadblock. Trucks, moving vans, trailers. At the roadblock, every one of them signed a paper saying they were going in at their own risk and were told to be back out by nightfall. They made it. They took out what they could, sat on the shore of the lake for a while, and came back out by evening. There were as many reporters in that convoy as there were vehicles loaded with belongings. It all went smoothly. So, a second run just like it was scheduled for the following morning at 10 o'clock. The following morning was Sunday, May 18th. 40 seconds. The morning was clear. There was an hour and a half to go before the convoy assembled. At 8:32, an earthquake slightly stronger than the previous ones struck beneath the mountain. On its own, it would have destroyed nothing, but for a slope that had been pushing outward for 2 months, it was enough. What followed took 40 seconds. The north face went. It did not explode. It slid in blocks, one after another, like a wall with the bottom row of bricks knocked out. It became the largest landslide ever recorded in written history. And then came the thing that was in nobody's model. While the slope was in place, it worked as a lid. The magma and the superheated water were sealed under its weight. When the slope left, the lid came off in seconds. The water flashed to steam instantly and went where there was no longer anything in the way, sideways and north. The temperature in that blast is estimated at over 570 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than any household oven. The speed was measured from the damage, 220 to 670 miles an hour. At the top of that range, that is close to the speed of sound. The sideways blast moved faster than the landslide, caught it, and passed it. What reached everything to the north first was not rock. It was hot gas. Part of the landslide went straight into Spirit Lake. The water did not part. It had nowhere to go, so it climbed the slopes of the mountain across the water. By some estimates, part of it may have gone over that summit. and that summit stands roughly 2,600 feet above the lake, twice the height of the Empire State Building. Up there, the wave stripped the forest and dragged it back down into the lake. Harry Truman's lodge stood on the south shore, exactly where the front arrived. Nobody searched for him. What came to rest on that spot was a debris deposit, and the estimates of its thickness range from 30 feet to 150. He was right about exactly one thing. The mountain did not run him off. It came to him. 6 miles north, on a ridge, stood an observation post. David Johnston was on duty there, one of the people who had spent the whole spring refusing to let the zone be opened. 6 miles counted as margin. By the reasoning of the time, a volcano strikes upward, and 6 miles of horizontal distance was a distance where nothing was expected. At 8:32, he came on the radio and said it was starting. Nothing more was heard from him. His body was never found. From there, the mass and the blast went into the valley. The forest was not broken at random. The trunks fell parallel, tops away from the mountain, and the direction of the blast can still be read off the ground today. About 230 square miles of forest were destroyed, roughly the area of Chicago. The autopsies later showed something unexpected. Most of the dead were killed neither by impact nor by burns. They suffocated, having breathed in hot ash. 57 people died that morning. What comes next is the most uncomfortable part of this story. This is the kind of thing I take apart. Subscribe. It keeps the next videos coming. 56 of 57. Now lay what happened over that line. The mass did not go around the mountain. It went one way, north, 14 miles down the valley. The sideways blast flattened forest across 230 square miles, and most of that area lay outside the drawn boundaries. Here's the number all of this was leading to. Of the 57 who died, exactly one had no right to be there: Harry Truman. The other 56 did. More than that, almost all of the dead were outside the red zone entirely. Only 3 of them were inside it. Right after the disaster, a version went around saying the victims had driven around the roadblocks themselves to get a look at the volcano. It has lasted to this day, and it is not true. Those people were there legally, for work, on a permit, or on duty. There is no culprit here with a surname. No charges were ever filed. But it cannot be explained by one cause either. The first cause is knowledge. The line was drawn on the assumption that a volcano strikes upward. A sideways blast was not part of the calculation, because no volcano of that size, in the memory of science, had ever failed that way. The second is pressure. The boundary was moved not only by knowledge, but by the people it inconvenienced. In May, they got their way twice. The first time, the convoy went in on Saturday and came back out. The second was due to go in at 10 on Sunday morning. The mountain went at 8:32. An hour and a half. That is the entire difference between the convoy that came back and the convoy that never was. And 2 more things, without which the count would have been different. The 18th was a weekend. On a weekday, crews would have been working the logging sites inside the devastated area. By available estimates, the count would have run into the hundreds. And the second, all spring, the geologists did not give in to the pressure to open the area. Johnston was one of them, and he died on his ridge a few weeks after saying, one more time, that people could not be let in. By the Geological Survey's own estimate, had they given in, the dead would have numbered in the hundreds, possibly the thousands. He lost the argument about the line on paper, and won it, in fact. The lake with no outlet. The mountain is about 1,300 feet lower than it was, the height of the Empire State Building. The symmetrical cone from the postcards is gone. Spirit Lake is still there, but it is a different lake. The landslide blocked its outflow. The lake rose 200 feet and lost its natural outlet. What held the water back was a pile of loose rock that nobody had designed. The same thing happened at Okeechobee. There, the water was held by a dike nobody had designed and nobody was watching, and it did not hold. So here, the blockage was not left alone. The Army Corps of Engineers bored a tunnel through the neighboring ridge, 8,500 feet long and 11 feet across. Since '85, the lake has drained through it, and the water has no other way out. The tunnel has needed major repairs 3 times since. In the summer of 2026, the Forest Service published its plan. Repair the existing tunnel, bore a second one beside it, and lower the lake by about 40 feet. In the region of $265 million, and Congress still has to approve the money. And the forest is still floating on the lake. The trees the wave tore off the slope more than 40 years ago lie on the surface in a dense mat. The same forest that was standing on that slope on the morning of May 18th. The spot where Truman's Lodge stood lies under the debris near the South Shore. The line around Mount St. Helens was argued over for 2 months. It was debated, disputed, appealed, and in the end it was moved. Not because new data appeared, but because people wanted to get to the other side of it. The data never changed the whole time. The bulge grew in plain view. It was measured every day, and nothing was hidden. What was missing was not numbers, but a precedent. Nobody had ever seen a mountain drop its own flank and strike sideways, so nobody could picture it. That gap has been closed now. The sideways blast is accounted for, and the zones are drawn along the terrain instead of with a compass from the summit. The question is a different one. A line is always drawn by people who know very little, and it is always pushed by the people it gets in the way of. How many lines like that are sitting in the wrong place right now? And will we find out about them the same way?